host, or hijacker. No one is safe. For 12 episodes, every creature in this series has been a killer. Every parasite we have opened a file on has hollowed out its host, or hijacked its body, or marched it to its death. Tonight, we turn all of that inside out. Tonight, a parasite that refuses to kill. A tiny tapeworm, no more than a scatter of pale larvae, slips into a single worker ant. And instead of dooming her, it does something far stranger. It makes her live for years longer than any of her sisters. It turns her body a soft, unnatural gold. And it arranges for her own nestmates to groom her and carry her and feed her from their own mouths like royalty, while she does almost nothing at all, and while the colony that pampers her is quietly bled toward collapse. A parasite reaching for your mind is frightening. Wait until you meet the one that grants its victim something that looks, terribly, like immortality. Its name is Anomotaenia brevis, and this is the story of the ant that would not die. To feel the horror of it, you first have to understand how short an ant's life is meant to be. Our host is Temnothorax neelanderi, a tiny brown ant of the European oak and beech forests, small enough that a whole colony, queen and all, fits inside a single fallen acorn or a hollow twig on the forest floor. In that miniature world, the math is harsh and simple. The queen may live for many years, the slow beating heart of the nest. But a worker is spent quickly. She labors, she forages, she tends the brood, and she dies, most often within months, rarely more than a year or two. That is the bargain of a worker ant. A short, useful, disposable life in service of the colony. Remember that number. Months, it is the measure against which everything that follows becomes monstrous. So, how does the tapeworm get in? Not through a bite, not through a wound, through a meal. The tapeworm's eggs arrive in the droppings of a bird, scattered near the nest, and the ants, cleaning and feeding, carry that contaminated material to their own larvae. It is the ant grubs, the colony's own babies, that swallow the eggs. Inside the young ant, the parasite settles into the gaster, the bulb of the abdomen, and there it waits as the ant grows up around it. A single worker can end up carrying as many as 70 of these larvae folded into her body. And when she emerges into adulthood, she emerges changed. Where her sisters harden into armored brown, she stays pale, soft-shelled and yellow, a living gold coin moving among ordinary ants. And then comes the impossible part. Researchers at the University of Mainz followed these infected workers for 3 full years, and what they found rewrote what a worker ant's life could be. In their study, uninfected workers died on schedule, exactly as nature intended. Of 285 marked ordinary workers, not one survived the 3 years. Not one. But the infected workers, the golden ones, endured. More than half of them were still alive at the end, a survival rate statistically indistinguishable from the colony's own queens. On average, they lived roughly 3 times as long as their nestmates. Now hold this carefully, because the word immortal is a spell and I do not want it to fool you. These ants are not immortal. They still age. They can still be killed. They still, in the end, die. What the tapeworm grants is not deathlessness, but a queen's lifespan handed to a creature built for a servant's. A worker that should have died in the autumn is still there, golden and gleaming, seasons upon seasons later, watching sister after sister wither and fall around her. Something that only looks, terribly, like immortality. But long life is only half of the curse. The other half is how she spends it. The infected ant does almost no work. She does not forage, she barely moves. She stays on the brood pile at the warm heart of the nest, sluggish and idle, physiologically frozen in a kind of permanent youth, her metabolism and her body chemistry resembling those of a young nurse ant who is only just emerged. And her sisters wait on her. The uninfected workers groom her more, carry her more, and feed her more, mouth to mouth, than they feed each other. In the language of the researchers, she receives more care than an ordinary worker, and by some measures a level of attention that rivals what is given to the queen herself. She has done nothing to earn it. She simply smells like something worth serving. The parasite appears to alter the chemical signature of her shell, the scent language ants use to know one another, and that altered perfume seems to switch on the colony's instinct to nurture. A false princess, crowned by a lie written in odor. How the parasite pulls this off, how a scatter of larvae can rewrite an insect's aging and its scent at once, is where I have to be honest about the edge of what we know. The scientists themselves say they are still lacking a full explanation. The leading clue is remarkable. The larvae pour their own proteins directly into the ant's blood, her hemolymph, and researchers found that a striking share of the proteins floating there are not the ants at all, but the parasites. Among the ones they could identify, the most abundant were antioxidants, the very kind of molecule that mops up the cellular damage of aging. Alongside this, the infected ant's own genes, the ones governing aging and immunity and metabolism, are switched to different settings. So the leading idea is that the tapeworm is dosing its host with a chemical fountain of youth while retuning her biology from the inside. But most of those secreted proteins have never been identified, and no one has yet proven the clean chain from molecule to long life. This is a mystery still being solved, not a closed case. And now the cruelty comes into focus, because none of this gift is free. Someone pays for the golden ant's long, pampered life, and it is her own family. In colonies carrying these parasites, the uninfected workers, the ones doing the real labor, the ones grooming and feeding and foraging for the idle princess, die earlier than workers in healthy colonies living under identical conditions. They burn out faster, and as the share of infected ants in a colony rises, the whole society begins to sicken. The workers die sooner. The queens die sooner too. Researchers estimated that a queen's risk of death climbed by roughly 9% for every 1% more of the colony that was infected. The colony grows less aggressive, less able to defend itself. Its behavior and its reproduction quietly degraded. Scientists studying the most heavily infected nests compared the syndrome to the collapse of a honeybee hive. The gift to the one is a slow poison to the many. A single ant is handed something like immortality, and her sisters pay for every extra day of it with their own shortened lives. So why? Why would a tapeworm build such an elaborate, patient betrayal, keep one ant young and golden and adored for years? Because the tapeworm was never trying to make an ant. The ant is only a way station. The parasite's true home, the only place it can grow up and breed, is the gut of a woodpecker. And a woodpecker hunts by cracking open acorns and twigs on the forest floor. Exactly the kind of place a temnothorax colony hides. Now picture the raid from the parasite's point of view. When a bird tears into the nest, the healthy workers scatter and flee. In one experiment, nearly 60% of uninfected ants bolted at the alarm, while barely 3% of the infected ones did. The golden ant does not run. She is slow, she is soft, she is bright against the brown, and she stays. Researchers believe, though this last step is a reasoned hypothesis rather than a thing filmed in the wild, that this is the whole point, that the long life and the colour and the sluggishness all exist to place her, conspicuous and unresisting, directly into the woodpecker's beak, and so carry the tapeworm home. The crown was never a reward, it was a lure. So let's hold the whole terrible thing in one hand. A tapeworm's eggs eaten by accident with a bird's droppings. 70 larvae folded into one worker's body. A life stretched from a few short months to a queen's long years. A pale gold shell, a life of total idleness, and a colony of sisters grooming and feeding the one who will not lift a leg to help them. A fountain of youth we still cannot fully explain. Bought with the early deaths of everyone around her, the nest bled slowly toward collapse. And at the end of it all, a bird waiting for the one ant too slow and too golden to run. That is the strange, quiet horror of Anomotaenia brevis. Not a killer, something worse, in its way. It offers its chosen victim the thing every living creature is built to want. More time, more life, more care, and makes that gift the instrument of everyone else's ruin. The golden ant is not blessed. She is wearing a crown that is really a leash, kept young and beautiful and beloved for one purpose she will never understand, until the beak comes down. A long life is not always a mercy. Sometimes it is just a longer sentence, and the ones who love you serve it with you. If the ant that would not die has earned a moment of your unease, subscribe every episode. We open another file on the creatures that hijack other lives to build their own. And next time, we turn the knife the other way. This time, a parasite gave its victim a terrible gift of life. Next time, one that gives only a command. It grows inside a cricket, swelling in the dark until it fills the body that carries it, and then it sends that body walking, calm and deliberate, toward the edge of the water and in, to drown, so that something long and pale can crawl out of the corpse it leaves behind. From a parasite that grants life, to a parasite that engineers a death, host or hijacker, no one is safe.